Hi, this is Izabel Florence, and you are listening to YouRLight podcast, a safe space where we talk about mental health and well-being. Hello, lovely. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. I want to say I don't take for granted your attention and your time, so I'm very grateful for having you here. This is the second episode of our emotion series, where we talk about how to label emotions and deal with them so that we can better our relationship with ourselves and with those around us. Today, we're going to talk about anxiety. So I was telling my friend about the idea that I had for this series, and she is a tarot reader and spiritual consultant, and she said to me, please talk about anxiety. It's the thing that my clients struggle with the most. And I think a lot of people struggle with anxiety, especially nowadays. I see the world that we live in as overwhelming, and a lot of things in our lives can be shown as a threat, can induce a state of fear, even when it's not a case of danger. And I think that is why a lot of us struggle with anxiety nowadays. Not because individually we are weaker, but because the society around us has become too unnatural for our bodies and minds. So let's start by introducing anxiety and understanding exactly what it is. Anxiety is your reaction to the perception of being in danger. It is there to keep you safe. It is a safety mechanism in your mind and body. So we should not judge ourselves for feeling anxious. We should not hate on our anxiety because it's there for a reason. It manifests in various ways, physically, emotionally, and psychologically. So physically, you might feel your heart racing. You might start sweating, trembling, experiencing shortness of breath. You might feel muscle tension and restlessness. The behavioral symptoms of anxiety is that you might avoid any situation that could possibly trigger your anxiety. You might also start rituals or behaviors that you feel can calm your nervous system. Even if those behaviors are considered negative, they are a coping mechanism for your anxiety. For example, drinking, binge eating, losing yourself in watching TV or scrolling on TikTok. In a superficial manner, you can see that as negative, but when you look closer, it is a reaction to something that you feel. So it is your mind and body trying to protect you from that feeling of anxiety. Emotional symptoms of anxiety can include irritability, feeling really angry about small things, frustration, a sense of being on edge constantly. Now, there is a difference between the feeling of anxiety and anxiety disorders or chronic anxiety. And today we're going to talk about the feeling. It is normal to feel anxious now and again. It is part of being a human being. If it leads to chronic anxiety or an anxiety disorder, it means that anxiety is influencing your life. So the feeling of anxiety becomes a disorder when it gets in the way of your normal day-to-day life. But feeling anxious is completely natural. It happens when you're doing something for the first time, or if you haven't done it in a really long time, you might feel anxious when you go back into doing it again. You might feel anxious before important events or unpredictable situations. So if that feeling is not directly influencing your day-to-day life in a really negative way, it's okay to be feeling it. And I want you to not judge yourself for feeling it. I want you to accept that you are a human being and that your anxiety is there to protect you. Now, anxiety sometimes can be confused with stress or worry. Worry is what happens in the mind. It's when we are thinking negative thoughts and we are worrying about the future mainly. It's to do with the thought. Stress is what happens in the body. It's the physical symptoms. Stress is the physiological response to threat. It is rooted in a more primitive part of the brain. So it's very unconscious and quite quick it happens faster than we can think. So you feel an adrenaline in the body. You might feel like you cannot digest anything. Again, stress is normal, but chronic stress can lead to various diseases. And it can lead to inflammation in the body, which therefore leads to diseases. So you've got worry, you've got stress. The combination of worry and stress is anxiety, basically. That's how I see it. It's the difficulty of dealing with the situation in your mind, in your thoughts, and the physical response to the threat. So anxiety, the feeling, is not going to harm you. And I think if you learn to react to it, to deal with the feeling, you can better the situation immensely. Because what I see is anxiety is a part of life. You will feel anxious. It's normal. It's not about trying to stop that anxiety in your life. It's about learning how to quickly take your body and your mind from that state to a calm, relaxed state. So you encounter a situation that your brain perceives as threatening. The amygdala in your brain becomes activated. The amygdala then communicates with the hypothalamus to initiate the body's stress response. This is what activates the sympathetic nervous system and triggers the fight or flight response. This response then means that hormones are released in your body, such as cortisol and adrenaline. After all of this response in the body, through which you will feel sensations, very intense, strong sensations, then your brain starts to figure out, is this threatening? Is it not? It goes back into your memory and compares this situation with past situations to try to figure out if it's threatening or not. But the sensation that you had in your body is already in motion. You're already feeling very strong hormones being released, such as adrenaline and cortisol. So all of this is a very strong, quick reaction that you feel. And this is why anxiety can feel so debilitating, because you feel so out of control, right? Your body is reacting in a way and you don't know how to deal with it. It feels overwhelming. But it is there for a reason. It is there to save you from the threat. It is there to protect your body and mind. Now, again, I want to reiterate that anxiety will happen. It is normal to feel anxious. What we can learn that I think is really important is to quickly be able to take your body from fight or flight to rest and digest, from this reaction that is all-consuming and overwhelming to being back in calm state, in relaxed, in peaceful mode. And the biggest thing that you can do about the anxiety when you feel it is not feel anxious about being anxious, because that will make the situation worse. If you're in public and you feel your body having these responses and you panic about being around people and feeling these feelings, it will only make you feel worse. So the first thing that you have to do is become non-judgmental about your anxiety. Accept your anxiety. Accept what you are feeling as a genuine feeling, not trying to fight it, and believe that you can regulate your nervous system back into a calm, peaceful state. When you feel anxiety, adrenaline is released within your body within 1/2 of a second. This response is very quick. And what I find is that most of the times you're not actually in danger. I've heard this before where someone compared your physical reaction to anxiety as your smoke alarm. Smoke alarms go off more in situations where there isn't a fire going on. When you're cooking something, or when you're burning some incense, or there's a fault in the smoke alarm and it goes off. There's no fire most of the times. Our anxiety in a way is similar because it gets triggered a lot. Most of the time, we're not in a dangerous position, and that's okay. We have to acknowledge its presence. We have to acknowledge its wish to protect us, and then we release it. We learn the mechanisms to bring our body back to being peaceful and calm. So the first thing to do when you feel anxious is to ask yourself, am I really in danger? Am I in physical danger right now? Then you let go of the judgment that you might feel for that anxiety. And then you decide, what is the tool that I'm going to use to bring my body back to feeling calm, feeling safe? One tool that is extremely powerful is the physiological sigh. And this is something that we do naturally as children and adults when we're crying, because it calms our nervous system. When you cry and you go, this is the physiological sigh. It works so well to relax us because it offloads a lot of carbon dioxide at once. So this is what you do. You take 2 inhales and a long exhale, like this. It's very relaxing. So I would say that is one of the most powerful things that you can do if you feel anxious. Another tool that I like using is to focus on your senses. So you can focus on your hearing. What can you hear? Focus on your touch. What can you feel in your skin? Touching your skin. How warm or cold is your skin? Focus on your vision. What can you see? Colors, lights. Focus on smells. Focus on what can you taste. This just brings you back to the present moment. It takes your mind away from the anxiety itself. It allows you to recenter in a way. And it can be very powerful as well. You can also try to focus on very specific parts of your body. Like if you just think of your hand and go from the very top of the fingertips and try to think, what does it feel like? You know, the top of the fingertips. Can you feel the bones in your fingers? Can you feel the skin in your hand? What is it touching? Does your hand feel cold? Does it feel tense or relaxed? Can you imagine every muscle in your hand, every vein, every pore, every hair follicle? There's a lot that we can focus on at one time. The more specific it is, the better. It just recenters your mind and relaxes your body. These are things that you can do in the moment when you feel the anxiety. One thing that you can do that can help you with anxiety long term is running. So the forward movement of running reduces anxiety at a basal level. There was a study published in 2018 showing that forward movement is associated with a suppression of the fear response and an activation of the courage response. Forward movement also triggers the release of dopamine, and this can be very powerful for dealing with anxiety on a day-to-day basis. There's a real powerful feeling of motion and willpower when you go for a run that can't really be described, I think, in words. It's a very primal feeling of courage because of this forward movement that happens in a run. So running is incredibly powerful for dealing with anxiety. Another thing that you can do is to share with others how you feel and why you feel the way you feel. When you have people validate your feelings, it lessens its power over you. It allows you to have more compassion for yourself, and it builds connection in a deeper level. I think I'm going to come back to anxiety later in the future because there's so much more that I want to talk about. There's so many other tools that we can use day to day to lessen anxiety. And we all know that nowadays it is very common to be feeling very anxious. So we should all be prioritizing bringing more peace into our lives, being in a state of rest and digest for longer in our lives, because it means that we'll live longer, happier lives. And that's all we want. That's all I want for you. and for everyone in your life and for everyone in my life. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I love you very much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening. All the links are written down on the show notes, as well as resources for anyone struggling with their mental health. Don't forget to subscribe so you're notified when we release new episodes. Also, feel free to share our podcast with your friends and family. And if you'd like to get involved, explore our content, or support our work, visit our website www.yourlight.earth. That's yourlight.earth. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at u.r.light. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time.